Let's get started. All right, so I'm so excited. Really, I've been looking forward to this one. Really, Mike is an awesome OffSec instructor, and so I'm really looking forward to learning a lot today. My name is Ben Tchoubineh. I am the co-founder and president of Phoenix TS, a certification and training organization. We have been doing training of professionals in cybersecurity, IT, and management since 1998 and have been a government contractor since 2004. And we've been an OffSec partner since last year. And I'm really excited about that because we're one of very few OffSec partners. OffSec a lot of times is uh, seen or is known as a purely online platform, and you're kind of on your own doing this, and it's very difficult and so on. But guess what? That's why we are here for to provide live instructor-led and mentored OffSec training so that you're not on your own anymore after that. So that's Phoenix TS. Ned is here. Ned is our director of marketing and strategy, and he's going to be driving, putting up polls and those kinds of things. But really, the star of the moment is Mike Dame, OSCP certified, and part-time instructor and full-time hacker, white hat hacker, and penetration tester. Mike, who's just a natural, honestly, just a natural at this stuff. And we're so happy to have you, Mike. This is about OffSec. So, without any further ado, I'm going to hand it over to you, Mike. Go for it.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks for the warm introduction. I really appreciate it. I'm going to share my screen out. I have a couple slides to go over, and then we'll get into some of the technical demonstration. Let me know once you can see that. I guess Ned or Ben.
Yeah, we can see it.
Yep. Okay, perfect. So really excited to cover Learn Offensive Security by Doing. I have a live hack prepared for you today, as well as some information on the OSCP path. I got a little information.
One thing I forgot to say, and I want to say this right now before you get really started, is that we have an offer. There is a live OSCP class happening in July. And if you stick around till the end of this webinar, we will show you how to get $500 off of the fee for that class. So just wanted to make sure I put that out there, and we'll get to that at the end of the webinar. All right, go for it. Sorry about that.
Great. My fault. No worries. Okay, so I'm a senior offensive security operator at SS&C currently. It's a large fintech company, so we do a bunch of software development and creation for financial services and software behind the scenes. I have 7 years of lead experience in red teaming and penetration testing, 11 years of industry and academic experience. I've been on 2 Fortune 50 red teams and done my time in the trenches as a senior consultant, both nationally and globally across multiple leading industries. I've got my master's degree in information assurance and cyber defense and carry quite a few leading certs in the offensive security field. But the one that's relevant for the conversation today is my OSCP, which I obtained back in 2019. So excited to share some of that with you. Things I enjoy, I really enjoy hacking anything. If it exists, I'd love to hack it, but particularly network, web, cloud, and physical. I like breaking into things that are off limits. And I'm really fueled by someone telling me I can't do something or I shouldn't do something. It really gets me going and enjoy running from there. Above all that, I really like providing help and support to others in search of growth. I have my personal mission statement down there at the bottom, which is really meaningful to me. I seek to inspire growth and drive meaningful change for those entering into the offensive security field through guidance, mentorship, and real-world insight. So I've included my email with Phoenix TS there on the left side, as well as my LinkedIn link. That's usually the best way to get in touch with me. Happy to chat after this webinar or answer any questions outside of this that you might have. Getting into the overview of what we're going to cover today, we're going to talk about what OffSec is. We're going to cover the PEN 200 and why it matters. We're going to look into the try harder mindset and how it leads to success. We're going to cover a brief roadmap if you're purely beginner looking to get your OSCP and how that might help you with the cybersecurity career boost. And then throughout all that, we're going to cover tips, mindset, passing, and just how to build your overall skill set. And then, of course, we have the technical demo. I'm going to be featuring a lab machine from OffSec PG Play. That's a free lab environment hosted on the OffSec platform. I've got some links that I can share for you all so you can register with that. You get about 3 hours of hacking on their platform a day for absolutely free. So it's a great resource. And while that technical demo is going on, we're going to do some interactive polling so you guys can get involved. And of course, there'll be some Q&A throughout. So really looking forward to it. OffSec. So OffSec is a real world offensive security training platform. It's the longest leader in offensive security training. It's the most recognized in the industry by the community as well as hiring managers. Within offensive security, the company, the Pen 200 course is what we're kind of talking about today. And that is what covers hands-on pen testing, the fundamentals. It includes a course, it includes training, it includes labs, and it includes the exam. The exam is the OSCP, which you all may be familiar with. That's the challenging 24-hour exam where you compromise standalone machines and you compromise an Active Directory environment. This whole summary of Pen 200 and the OSCP exam, it's to prepare you for professional pen testing. It covers attacks against computers, against networks, websites, and basic cloud security. Some topics covered there on the right. It looks into Linux and Windows privilege exploitation, CVE exploitation. It used to be covered heavily into manual creation of buffer overflow exploits. It's since shifted to more of an Active Directory exploitation route, which is more real world and what you'll see in real enterprise environments. And it also covered things like cross-site scripting, SQL injection, common web vulnerabilities. They've included more about AWS exploitation now, which is really exciting to see that they're shifting and staying relevant with more cloud exploitation. And then it covers a bunch of different tools you'll see across the industry like Nmap, Burp Suite, and of course, Kali suite of tools, which includes a large majority of pen testing suite and tool set. I've included a link here to the course syllabus so you guys can check that out. And it's a little more detailed as into the different areas that is covered throughout the course. And we will be sharing out these slides after the fact, so you'll have all those links and everything for you. I wanted to touch on the try harder mindset a little bit because that's the slogan of offensive security in the OffSec company. They have 4 pillars of what try harder means to them. It's about learning practical skills and attitude, being persistent, being creative, and being perceptive. I have a little bit of a different perspective of that and what it means to me, which I'm happy to share with you. But there is a little bit of opposition and resistance to this try harder mentality in some part of the offensive security community. There are a lot of different training resources out there that like to provide detailed breakdowns of what the technology is and the steps you take. OffSec takes a little different approach, which I really enjoy and think is pretty impactful. It pushes you through obstacles to be resilient. It makes you adapt the mindset of not quitting too early or not settling for defeat. And it sharpens your ability to be persistent throughout engagements and throughout lab exercises, and really gives you an overall confidence with the mindset and the methodology of what it takes to succeed as an offensive security professional. Because this field is not easy by any means, and learning what try harder means through the extensive course and labs and situations that OffSec puts you through, it really sets you up for adopting that mentality and then applying it throughout your career, even beyond offensive security. So it's something I really, it resonates with me, and it's an awesome mindset that you'll see throughout the course.
So I wonder how does this kind of manifest itself when you are taking the course online, right? So like, if you go out and create an account through OffSec, right? When you're starting the course, okay, it says you should try harder. Like, what does that mean? Like, how does this manifest itself? Because you're like, does it tell you, does it just tell you you got to do something but doesn't tell you how? How does that work?
It gives you the basic methodology. It gives you the tool sets and walks you through different steps and approaches that you want to take. And it sets your mind up for, like, I like to think of it as you becoming a detective. So it gives you the abilities to look at any situation and be resilient to get to the end goal. You're faced throughout the lab, the course, and the training with constant dead ends or cliffhangers. And what I like to think about it is in the real world, when you're running a penetration test from A to Z, you don't have anywhere to go for answers. You don't have a book of solutions. You're looking at this environment for the first time, and while you can gather as much information as you can, nobody's going to tell you how to exploit it. Nobody's going to tell you where the holes are. So the methodology and the mindset you adapt through these difficult lab scenarios, they kind of push you into molding your own methodologies and skill set and mindset, so that you can come to the conclusions and the answers on your own. It's real world in the way that you're not fed answers. You have to go and find them, and it's really challenging in some cases, but you can also rely on the fact that these are intentionally vulnerable labs and machines. There will be an answer, and if you look at it long enough and hard enough, do your research, continue to repeat that, you will find the solutions to that. And that's really rewarding. And that's a mindset that you take beyond the course in the labs to the real world, to your profession, and get some real successful results.
So would you say like the keys to success are what? Persistence? What else comes to mind in terms of like being successful?
Yes. So they like to say persistence, creative, and perception. You're looking at a lot of different environments. You're looking at a lot of things that are exploitable in multiple ways. You have to look at different creative ways to do that. You do your own research to pick out what tools work, what methodologies might work, and then being really perceptive of all the information that you're gathering while you're running a penetration test, and taking that and forming potential outcomes. I could perform like A, B, C, D, E, coming up with new and exciting ways to try to compromise these environments, because you will be met and faced with engagements in the real world where it might not be hackable, but you still have to put forward your best foot and try every single possibility, because a threat actor has unlimited time and resources to compromise environments. It's our job to try to emulate that as an offensive security professional and find those holes to help better secure our client or our customer or company. So this try harder mentality is something a threat actor already has. They're fighting to break into these companies to feed their family or to survive. We have to adapt that and grow that and build that mentality in ourselves in order to succeed.
That's so interesting. Like, so for example, like with a lot of other certification, like in courses, the labs will say, do this, then do this, then do this. It's like the step by step kind of tells you what to do. So you're learning by doing, but not by figuring things out, because you just kind of do what they're telling you. This is
That's
not
exactly
the case
right.
here, right?
That's exactly right. And there's a time and a place for those walkthroughs. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of great courses that I've been through who do that and build up my technical competency in that way. It sets the fundamentals. It gives you resources to pull from.
Right.
But it's just like you said, it's solving the problem on your own without that step-by-step walkthrough that really makes the difference. And I think that's what makes OffSec.
Cool. All right.
Awesome. So let's move forward here. Here's a little bit of a roadmap for what it might look like if you're trying to get your OSCP. There's a newer course that OffSec offers called the PED 100. So that's the precursor to the course that we're talking about today. And this one's really cool and more in line with what Ned was talking about, some step-by-step fundamentals. Excuse me. It covers things like Linux basics, Windows basics, networking fundamentals, Bash scripting, Python scripting. So if you're not confident enough to go into an environment and try to find those solutions, there are some good resources to take within offensive security to learn your base skill set. And then, of course, we have the PEN 200, which I'm talking about today. That is where you're applying the fundamentals of pen testing, and then repetition through the labs, which is really important. This is where you build the skills, you build the mindset, you build your methodology, and you build your confidence. The lab environment is really what makes the OSCP an awesome experience. And then you have your OSCP, that's the 24-hour exam. That's where you take everything you've learned with your methodology and put it into practice within that examination. And once you gain that, that really is an industry baseline for offensive security. What that helps you with from a career perspective, if you're at an internal company and you obtain your OSCP, you prove that you want it. You prove that offensive security is important to you. You've gone through the gauntlet and you've proved that you can pass this test. For applying for outside jobs, it meets that industry requirement and vouches for your technical competencies. So when I look at other people applying to offensive security jobs, a lot of recruiters or HR management, they look for that OSCP as that piece to say, you can look at an environment, you can compromise machines in a heated time restraint, and you have the technical capabilities to do this type of work. On top of that, it really gives you great technical experience to pull from, whether that's speaking at your current company or understanding how a threat actor's mind works, or speaking across an interview process, telling how you discovered a CV, how you exploited it, what that led to, what the impact was. It gives you a long list of great experiences to pull from. But then from there, what do you do after your OSCP? It really, I have to emphasize this, this is a baseline in offensive security. It's very challenging to get to that point, but then it opens up the world of what offensive security is and all the different niches that rest below that umbrella. So you want to start seeking new challenging experiences, take the mindset that you learned from the OSCP and apply it to other areas to further grow your expertise and skill set. So now I want to get into the live demo for you all today. I'm going to be using the PG Play Box Potato. It is introductory level, but it has some great concepts that'll show methodology and things of that nature. I have a link here as well. This will show you how to sign up for your free account in the Offensive Security Library so that you can touch some of these machines and get some practice in as well.
And again, these links are going to be on the slides we're going to provide to everybody after the webinar. All right, this is exciting.
So this is what the OffSec platform looks like once you log in. I'm going to show you just how to navigate to it real quick. Under Explore, Labs, and Play, I'm going to search Potato, and I'm going to get this booted up.
So these are like virtual machines that have names of like
yeah, so
vegetables?
each one that has a code name associated with it, as well as like the points, a difficulty.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So yeah, I can actually show you real quick. So they got warm up. They're all easy boxes. They'll tell you if it's Linux or Windows. There's also like leaderboards, different like point-based ways to make it fun and interactive. There's intermediate level and then try harder, which are the most extreme. But let me get this booted up because it does take a second to go. Should have pressed it when I had it. And Ned, you can start getting the polls ready to go. I'm going to have a question for you guys to start.
That's good, Mike.
Once this boots, we'll get an IP address for the lab machine. And the first question for you guys is, what do you do? You're given an IP to attack it. What is our first step? Where do we even start?
All right, so the poll's coming up. That also takes some time to come up. And there we go. Scan all ports with Nmap. Try logging in via SSH. Look for an admin login page or check LinkedIn for employee names. Yeah, so go ahead and pick your answers. Already a couple of people have picked Nmap. I'm gonna say look for an admin login page just because I want to be different.
So you guys are spot on with your Nmap scan. We want to discover what ports are open from both TCP and UDP perspective. When we're given an IP and we don't know what it's looking like, we want to know what services are open, what ports are open, what can we gather from there. I'm just still spinning up a couple of things. I'm opening Burp Suite in the background because we're going to be using that, and I'll touch on that in a second. Yeah, let's run our Nmap scan with a -p-. That's a full port scan on TCP. Typically, we do UDP as well. That takes a little bit longer to confirm, but we'll let that run. And we get some ports open back right away. So we have 22, which is SSH. We have 80 HTTP, and we see a different port here, 2112, which that triggers in my mind. That's not a typical port that I normally know. I don't know what that's associated with. So Ned, if you want to pull up the next question, which is what do we do when we see a port that we don't fully recognize, or what do we want to do as a next step here? And then I'll tell you a little bit about Burp Suite. So Burp Suite is a web proxy. And this is one of my everyday tools. I use the professional edition. And what a web proxy essentially does is allow you to proxy your web traffic through this application. So anything that's taking place for requests from the front end, seeing an application, to the back end, we're able to view it, observe it, manipulate it, replay it, all that fun stuff. So we did see that port 80 was open with HTTP. So we're going to want to look at that web port as well. But yep, you guys are spot on. We want to do a detailed service scan of the ports. So I'll show you how to do that. Nmap-p. We specify the port numbers. We do an SV to enumerate versions, SC to enumerate scripts, and then the IP address. The copy and paste is a little bit funky with this VM because it's This is all virtualized in our browser, which makes it really easy to go and hack these labs, but sometimes copy paste is difficult. And Nmap has its own repository of different version identification as well as scripts. So we're pulling from that library and going to test that against each one of these ports to see what comes back.
So is it okay? So here's a question for you, and I'm sorry everybody for the highly technical people here who have already done this stuff, but for me, one question I have is this environment, right? Do they tell you like what the challenge is, or no? It's just an environment, and you have to go in there and start to do a pen test on your own. There's no like directions that tells you this is the particular challenge. Even it doesn't even describe the challenge. Nothing.
Nope, we're trying harder. We're given an IP, that's our target, and we're going from there. So we have our methodology in place. I have my cemented methodology and the steps that I take. Yours might be a little bit different, but we're applying that. We're learning from this experience. We're modifying our own methodology, and then we're implementing it towards the next box. And it's through this process of not knowing and iterating that we strengthen our skill set.
Well, okay, so then here's another question. I'm just trying to wrap my mind around this. What is there a goal? Like, does it say, hey, this machine? I'm like asking for more direction at this point.
Yeah, no,
I know I got to try harder here, but like, does it say what the goal is? Like, what am I looking for?
Great question. Yeah, so our goal, at least for these flags, is to compromise the machine from both a user level and a root level, or an NT authority system level. We want base level permissions on the server, and then we want to elevate our privileges to be full owner of that machine. And that's typically what you're looking for in a pen test. How can I compromise this machine? How can I elevate my privileges to the highest level possible? And in this lab scenario, we do that by obtaining flags on these machines. When we compromise a user, we look for a flag on that user's desktop or home directory, and then we take that hash flag and submit it, and that proves we've compromised this machine from a user perspective. Now let's elevate. We do the same thing. We grab the root flag and apply it. So that's in a way of like measuring success in terms of the lab environment. It's compromising this machine from both a user level and a root level.
Okay, cool. Thank you. And by the way, everybody, as you can see, I've got all kinds of dumb questions. So if you have questions, please put them in the chat. All right, go for it.
No worries. So we got some results back from our service scan. We see that SSH is open. We see that the HTTP server was queried. It's coming back as Apache 2.4.41. We want to take notes, whether on the side or mentally, of different version numbers that we can look into further. We now know that our port 2112 is FTP with Pro FTP. And look at here, we have anonymous FTP login allowed. I think that queues up our next poll question, Ned. And while that's coming up, I want to say, so I dropped the URL here in the browser that's connected with Burp, and we can look at the HTTP history of what's going on behind the scenes. We can see the GET request to the server. We can see the server header coming back. That's likely where Nmap pulled its information of Apache 2.4.41. And we can look at the source code of the page. Just confirm there's really not a lot going on here. There's just the header, paragraph, the source image. We don't have a lot of information from a web perspective. But looking back at FTP, yep, so we got some mixed answers on that one. This was a little bit of a trick question for you guys saying it's the ability to upload PHP shells. The only reason that's not fully correct is we don't know what permissions we have yet, so let's check that. And also, we don't necessarily want to upload anything to the server unless we know that's the route that we want to compromise. We don't want to leave things behind or intentionally change anything unless we know that's for sure the route we want to take. So let's start by connecting to the FTP server and look and see what we see and can download. Let me grab that key again. I think it's out of the copy buffer. 2. So anonymous access is essentially just default credentials for this FTP service. You'd be surprised how often I find this in enterprise environments, whether that's through FTP or SMB anonymous access or web login default credentials. It's everywhere, and it'll often lead you to a first foothold. Whether that's done by mistake, when this was set up, no one changed that and it was a default, or someone added anonymous access to make it easier to access these servers on their own. It's usually, with security, it's usually like an ease thing or a default thing or not understanding of the configurations that it's left open and vulnerable. So we use the credentials FTP to log in. We can do !* to see the different commands we have, but we can do a dir to list those files. And let's get both of those so we can inspect them further. this does lead us to the next question, which is we see an index.php.back file. Why might this be interesting? Ned, do you want to queue that one up? Look at both these files. And then let's also cover what the other option was, which was try uploading a file just to check our permission, so I can show you guys what that looks like. This is a lab environment, so we don't have to worry so much, but okay, so we created a file. We're going to connect back to the FTP server. We're going to try to put.
So why did you create a file?
Just to test to see if we have upload permissions. And the reason some people in chat are thinking that's a good route to go is because if we can upload to the web server, we can upload our own potentially malicious scripts. And then if we can navigate to those, we could potentially execute them and gain remote code execution on the server. So it's a great thought for those of you that were thinking that route. In this case, unfortunately, we don't have permissions to operate that. So we have to fall back to the permissions we had. And let's start looking at some of these files. Welcome. Got a welcome message. It looks like some just environmental variables, nothing really interesting there.
So what was this .bak file, this index is just an old backup file? Is that?
Yeah, let's look at it now. So that's typically the naming structure of a backup. So this might give us some additional information of what this index.php file used to look like. We want to look at it for hardcode credentials, or is there anything within the code that we can leverage to potentially exploit on the machine? And we see there we do have some hard-coded credentials, pass equals potato, change this regularly. I find passwords through different sensitive files all the time. It's very common. Then we see we have some logic here for how the application is posting a login to the server. We got admin, takes the password, it validates both of those. So it needs to be an admin user. It needs to be the correct password. Then it gives us a welcome message. It redirects us to dashboard. So this is interesting. We didn't know about dashboard before. And then it sets a cookie to give us authentication. So this one backup file alone gave us some really juicy info. Let's see if we can hit dashboard just to, there's my copy paste issue. Just to see what's going on. Okay, so that's not found on the server. I think this leads us to the next question is we don't really have any other areas of interaction with this web server. Why might we want to directory brute force as our next step of operations here? There's a few tools that we can use for directory brute forcing. GoBuster, I think that has to be installed. But Dirtbuster is one that's just easy to use. It's got a quick little GUI. You can bring it up here in Kali. And the answer here is we want to discover hidden resources or login pages or anything else about this application that we could potentially use. Show you how this works. We take the URL. Oops, it won't work. We select a word list. Essentially what we're doing is you want to throw a bunch of different potential directories, file types, whatever we can to discover what else is out there. And if my copy paste will work, I can show you quickly how big these files are. Okay, so it's a giant list of different potential endpoints. If we look at the size of it, it's over 200,000 different endpoints that we can attempt through automation rather than just poking around at different endpoints. So I'll run this off and see what comes back. And right away, we can already see we're getting 200 responses for different potential files and directories on the server. So we have /admin, which we didn't know about before. And lo and behold, it is a login place. So we find a login. What are the next steps? I think that's the next poll question. Yeah. You don't know the credentials. What's the next move? Oops. I'll give you guys a second there to answer, but also show you what this looks like behind the scenes. And burp. So the answer for this one, we can try them all. We can try them all. Let's start with defaults. So admin is one that's got me into far too many portals. And we can watch that request from the back end. It's a post. We're giving it the username admin. We're giving the password admin, bad user and password. So no luck there. If you guys remember, we
Okay,
also
so can you go back and say how did you do that? What tool did you use for that?
So Dirbuster was a tool that I used to directory brute force, and it
Right.
took the URL and attempted a bunch of different directories and files against it to see how they responded from the server. So
Okay.
we discovered that admin was there. We got a 200 response, so we navigated to that in our web browser and
Right.
saw that there was a login problem.
So then what did you do? Oh, I see. You used admin user and admin password.
Correct. And
Okay,
you'd be
so
surprised how often that works in different environments. I
I
see it
see.
external, I see it internal. Another great technique is to just search for the documentation of the software. So for example, because Apache 2.4.41 came up, we'd look up Apache 2.4.41 default credentials, look for any documents that are out there and then attempt those default credentials.
I
But in this
see. So
case,
you're
I just got
using
admin.
default credentials. Okay, got
Right.
it.
And if we remember, we also saw some hard-coded credentials in that backup file. So let's try those as well. Let's see if we still have it here handy. It was password potato. So let's try admin potato. Fortunately, that's not going to work for us today. So we have to try a little bit harder. Defaults for hard-coded credentials would have been a little too easy. Let's try the SQL injection route. I'm going to show you guys this one quickly, just because there's a lot to SQL injection. And I could be here all day showing different configurations and tool setup for it. But we'll just do a simple SQL map, which is an awesome repository of a ton of different SQL injection techniques. What we do is we copy the request that we took to the server, which is there's our post request, there's our username and password. I believe I already copied it. We save that to a file. Forget spell. And then SQL map has an awesome feature where we can just apply the request. It automatically identifies what variables we're using, and then it attempts different SQL injections. So I want to use the proxy flag. The reason I want to use a proxy flag is so we can throw all the traffic that SQL is going to take towards the server, and we can visualize it within our browser, just to give you guys a better picture of what these requests actually look like. So SQL map dash r requests, and then dash proxy was HTTP. 192.168.66.1.
So Mike, as you're doing this, Adam has a question. Do you have a recommendation on an alternative to SQL map? I thought that was banned tool for the OSCP.
Yeah, so a lot of full automated tools might get you in trouble. The level of which SQL injections you'll find within the labs usually won't take the extent of SQL map to find it. I can show you an alternative here in a second. But let me just show you what this looks like to get an idea of traffic coming through. Oh, sorry, speed this up. I want to send it through the proxy. So the reason I recommend automated tools to start is to get an idea of what that looks like. Let's view some of these requests and see how it's sending them, what those examples of common payloads look like. Now, if we want to circumvent the use of automated tools, like you said, let's cancel this. Let's take our base requests. We can send it to a tool called Intruder. And Ben, I am getting some background noise coming through. Thank you. We can add like a content block here for the payload. and we can pick sniper payloads. We can upload our own lists of common SQL injections. This is a good one. We'll just take a few of those, for example. And we can start this attack. It's basically doing the same thing that your more automated tools would do, but you're just replaying a single request over and over to see if you get any responses. So I hope that helped answer some of that. You can also manually go through top lists of injections and attempt to add those, or find out more information about the underlying technology of the application and attempt different bypasses there. But I did lead us a little bit down a rabbit hole, and that's fine, which is SQL injection is not going to be our route. We don't get any hits from SQL map. We tried it through Intruder. Obviously, you'd spend a little more time making sure you fully exhausted this in the real world. But let's go back to some of the information we have about the technology itself and see if we can use that. So I think, was that the next question? Yeah, to see if there's any PHP authentication bypasses that we can provide. So go ahead and do that next question. And I kind of gave away the answer a little bit. I apologize. But that is to look through the source code and look for anything that might indicate what we could do to bypass. So if you look at this first line here, it says a little bit about how we are authenticating to the server. There's a string comparison, which we want to look into. It's PHP. Let's look into authentication bypasses out there in the wild for string comparison. And since I have done this before, I do know the answer, but the idea here would be go search high and low for different authentication bypasses that might take place. One that we'll find with a little bit of research is that there's an inherent weakness in PHP's comparison process. If you enter an empty string array, it returns null. And if you remember, by looking at our source code, if we get a null equals 0 returning true, that should successfully complete this AND statement and allow us to pass through. So put simply, there's an inherent weakness in PHP's string comparison. We can add an empty array and see if that gives us what we're looking for. So let's try it. And how I'm going to do that is, again, with Burp Suite. So there's a cool little feature called intercept. And when we turn that on, what it does is throw up a wall. So any requests we make to the back end are now paused and held within Burp Suite. Then we can manipulate them how we want to bypass the front end JavaScript, and then we can forward it on to our destination. So I'm going to go back to the login page. I'm going to send a new request. I'm going to capture an intercept. And then we're going to see if we can bypass the authentication logic with this empty array. We'll forward that. Check out the request and response. We do get a 200. Welcome to the dashboard. And it displays in our browser with a successful session token. So that's pretty cool.
Oh, this is pretty cool, man. Now I want to be a hacker. Yeah, because I have a development background. And so obviously when we're testing our applications as developers, we do have tools to kind of do exactly what you just did, right? But so this is a tool obviously for hackers, but it really has a lot of similarities with development tools, interestingly enough.
Right on. Yeah, absolutely. And I often use like Postman. Postman is a development tool to load different API documents and run it and replay it. One of the key parts, and I forgot to mention this about web app pen testing in general, is the best way to effectively test it is to fully understand what the application is. How is it working? What are the API calls? What are the user flows? And I think the best penetration testers in the world have a deep understanding of what it is they're testing before they do. And those are things you can find out. Like this is a new application to you and me. You take the time to really fully understand what it looks like, how it's working, use developer tools, use whatever it takes to understand that, and then look for the holes in the logic, or then throw some penetration testing tools at it to see what comes up.
Very cool.
So we'll navigate to the dashboard. Oh, intercept is still on, so let's turn that off so traffic is flowing again. We now see we have an admin area, just like I said. So my typical methodology here is to just click through, see what's going on. Users, lists admin, it sends users through the URL. So I'm taking note, okay, there's a parameter that we could potentially inject or mess with. We got date, does the same thing, it passes it through the URL. We have logs. We can get these files. Ned, you can go ahead and cue the next question here. We have ping. And ooh, Burp didn't like that. Ping, it looks like that's sending a ping command on the remote server and displaying the outcomes. So my thought is, okay, can we inject commands there potentially and get this displayed outcome? But let's look at this log request, because this one's a little particular. We see that it's accessing a log file. We don't really know where that's at yet, but we can see that it displays the output of that log file, content2 div. I'm going to butcher, I think that's German.
That's actually French, Mike.
Oh, it's French, and Ben is our resident French expert.
Yeah,
so
it means the content of the folder.
It's in the file. Perfect. Thank you for that. So we can see that it's pulling this log file and then displaying the contents. So when I see that, I think of local filing.
The file, I mean, not the folder. Why did I say folder? Yeah.
You're good. So the thought there is we can potentially read files on the server. We have the pull question of what do we want to read? We got some people putting different answers there. The first one, the most typical one in methodologies, is looking at that etc password file to see if we can display different hashes of users on the server. So
I want to know why it's in French. Why is it responding in French? That's weird.
Good question. I don't know if that's to throw us off, or I've seen a lot of different backends developed in different countries. You're going to see a myriad of different languages and technologies throughout your career. Who knows? You know, it's
interesting.
You just have to adapt and hopefully have a translator ready to go. Okay, so let's do some local file inclusion, which essentially means we're going to try to break out of the web directory that we were looking at where those log files stayed. We're going to specify parent directory to move up in that hierarchy of folders to go as high as we can, and then specify operating system files that might be interesting. etc password is always a good spot to start, just to see what kind of read permissions we have and if we can get some additional information. And I sent that to intruder, not repeater. Okay, so let's replay this request, replacing that log file with one of the server. And we can see displayed here on screen is that etc password file. A bunch of different users. It tells whether they have login sessions available. We do see a web admin user with a hash on screen that has bin bash as their login preference. So we know the potential login user and we have their hash. Let me just show you from my operating system why that's important. I can cat etc password here. This is my local workstation, and that's where we're storing different user and hash information. It's typically an etc shadow, but they're kind of giving us the hash here. Okay, so let's take that hash, and we're going to attempt to crack it to see if anything goes out. Oh, I got Teams in the way, the copy paste. Save that to a file. Normally, we throw this at something like Hashcat and use some GPUs. This is in a virtual environment, so that might be a little bit more difficult. And one thing that's important to note is what file type, hash type is it? So Hashcat does have a great resource of example hashes where you can go down and look what the typical hash looks like. We can see that this one is an MD5 crypt, and we can tell that with the tailing slash that we see there. So that's good to know. In this case, it is going to be a little bit easier to crack. We can use John which essentially takes a word list, hashes it with the algorithm that it suspects this hash to be, and compares the results to see if this hash will correlate with plain text password. Sometimes you can take hours hashing different rule sets, throw a bunch of GPUs at it. In this case, we get it relatively quick. It used user shared John password list and decrypts that to plain text of Dragon. So we now know that there's a user web admin to the server who has a bin bash login, and we have potentially plain text creds here. And if you remember from earlier, from the information we gathered, we have SSH open on this box. So that might be a good route to test these credentials out. So that can be 192.168.66.101. We get a prompt for authenticity, which is good. It's meaning that the server is allowing for connections. Say yes. We can try Dragon. And lo and behold, this does give us a user access to the backend web server of this box. So that's awesome. What am I? We are web admin. We can do some enumeration. LinPs, I believe, is one that we can still use within the lab environment. This is an awesome privilege escalation script. It's good to use from an automated perspective to understand all the different checks that it takes, but then you may have to go back through and do this manually when it comes time. Let me show you what this does, but basically it's a culmination of a bunch of different privilege escalation possibilities. Let's grab it. We'll give it execute permissions, and we'll let that run. I've also included in the slides here some manual resources. This is one that's go-to, so I'd run through these steps by hand, check etc issue, check the kernel version, check all of this. We want to just really, same way we were doing with the web app, understand what's going on. We want to understand the underlying operating system and configurations. So we'll let that run.
So you went online from the virtual server, from the OffSec environment, and then downloaded a tool, and then started using it?
Correct. In these lab environments, they have some explicit allows where you can reach out to GitHub and download any tools that you want. There are more covert ways to do this than downloading these scripts directly to like your target workstation, but in lab environments, it's usually not a concern. Yeah, and you want to use whatever tools you can to better iterate the machine. So you can see it's checking for a bunch of different common Linux priv escalation paths, as well as just system information that you can use. In a real world environment, we'd read through this and really get familiar with what we're looking at. In this one, I'll show you here. SSH again. Typically, the first thing I do when I jump on a box, let me show you real quick. We can cat these text files. So when we were talking earlier about flags, we'll cat those. And we have our flag that we can submit and say we successfully gain compromised user access to this web admin on the server. But usually the first thing I check is for sudo permissions.
Wait, what was that last step that you did to get the flag?
So in the home directory for this user, home web admin, which we landed in from SSH, there was a local text and user text file. I think local is the one that will have that hash, same way root.txt, which we might be able to see. No, we don't have permissions. I'll show you that one when we do get to the elevation. But those are they'll be incorporated in every machine, including the ones you compromised for your exam, as the flags to prove that you fully compromised the system. So one of the first things I do for privilege escalation is sudo tac-l. Sudo in Linux is saying do a command with super user privileges. So it's a command that you can leverage to be more secure about who is able to elevate the permissions and run certain commands. The -l flag says what permissions you have access to. We can see here, this is accessible by all users in all groups to run the bin-nice executable for any file with a wildcard in the notes folder. So we can look real quick. Notes, we see there's a couple of different scripts here that some sort of admin created this bin-nice command to run these scripts so that people could run elevated privileges. So we can try it. Bin-nice notes ID. And that drops, I believe that's the group command. We can try clear. And you can see it's coming back with the group root. So when this command was run, it's run under the elevated privileges of root. That's why we're seeing that our group is root. So, and that just clears. Okay. So I know there's an inherent weakness with wildcards when they're added to pseudo permissions, which is similar to local file inclusion, where you can kind of break out of this file structure and then specify your own files and run them with those elevated permissions. In a real scenario, we'd look maybe at GTFO bins, and we'd specify like there was a wildcard find to see if we could leverage that. And we can go back to output of WinPs, and we'll see the line here where it checks for sudo and says to dig into that further. I want to show you that there's ways to find this without knowing it. I'm obviously doing a demo, but let's take advantage of this and elevate our privileges. So the way that we do that is we're going to try to create a script, and then we're going to try to reference it with this command and run it as that root user. So we know that we can write into our home directory because we wrote a lin piece of that, and we usually have permissions to do that in our own home directory. Let's touch shell. Let's echo just a simple bash shell to that file. And then let's give it executable permissions. I may have skipped a question because I got too excited. You have limited access. What do you want to do first? The answer is that sudo permissions. I apologize for that. We'll keep moving. So we're going to run sudo /bin nice notes. We're going to escape the wildcard and then enter home web admin shell, this new file that we just wrote. And we can see that it did execute bin bash with root permissions. The next pull is, what do we do to confirm that we have root? Do you want to throw that up on screen? Yeah, nowhere. Let's try who am I. The answer is all of those we can try. So who am I? Oh, type that wrong. Who am I? We are root ID. We are in the group folder. Can we access root directory? Yes. Can we cat the root or proof files? Yes, we can. Let's go to the web root var and show like the extent of the impact here. Like if this were a pen test, how will we prove this even further? We can go into the web directory where the web server is being hosted, and we can touch hacks.txt, echo. This is a ransom note to hacks. And if we check that web server from an external perspective, see if this works. You now see the contents of our web note. So we proved that we've taken full compromise of this machine at the highest level permissions, which is cool. That's always fun and exciting. That's the extent of the technical demo. I do have some more tips and tricks for you guys on the next slide, but I want to stop there briefly, see if there was any questions on that. It was really quick. It was a lot. I tried to fit it in. So hopefully you guys are
well, I mean, it was wow. That's just really super impressive. I think I'm not only impressed with just what you did, but also just your level of knowledge and how excited you got. as you went through this. You're like really excited to like break into this. You're obviously a natural.
It's fun. And I'll tell you, it's for anyone struggling to get started, I would really encourage you to get past that first hurdle, which is your first box. Because when you do, if you're met with a flood of excitement, you know it's right for you. I still have flashbacks to the first one I did.
Yeah, that's cool. Now, don't drop yet because I'm gonna show you something before you go to your next meeting. And if you could quickly go to the final slide there, because I do want to tell everybody about our offer.
Yeah, I do have some tips and tricks. Maybe I can wrap up. I can get to that after you talk about this.
Yes. Okay. So I know some of you have to go. So I just want to make sure you understand we have a class available on July 14th, running on July 14th. And if you, since you are on this webinar, if you mention the code LiveHack25, you or anyone you know or anyone in the organization can register for this class and get $500 off the cost of the class. And why is the class good? Because you're going to get about a month, up to a month earlier access to the OffSec environment. It comes with the class, the OffSec Live access. So you can go through several chapters and get a lot of knowledge before the class. And then after the class, you get up to 6 weeks of mentorship. So you are not on your own if you were to go through OffSec online by yourself, right? That's a lot more challenging. This class you're going to have 5 days of just constant mentorship, training, along with so the hours are 9 to 5, like during the day. And but you also get the mentorship for 6 weeks after, and you get the access to the environment. And also the DISA course offering, we are working on that, by the way. We are working to add it to the DISA course offering as well. I will let my wife, who is the DISA contact, know that that's been a request. All right. So anyway, go ahead. You do your thing, and then we'll finish up. Go ahead, Mike.
I have just a couple of tips to wrap up. I don't want to keep it too long, but my tips would be complete all the lab boxes, then complete them again. I had a situation in the lab environment where I ran a bad exploit. It wiped my hard drive. I lost everything. I was devastated, but I went back through, and that exercise actually set me up for great success. I'd say read as many other experiences as you can, other people's methodologies, take from that and build your own. Watch some machine walkthroughs. If you enjoyed watching this one today, IPSec, I have his link on the left side, does hundreds of these, and he has a site called IPSec Rocks, so you can search for a technique, let's say cross-site scripting, bunch of different boxes on Hack the Box that you can click through. It'll take you right to that timestamp, and it'll walk you through invaluable resource. And then complete other OSCP boxes. So outside of the lab, there are other platforms that have similar ones. TJ Null makes a great spreadsheet of on Hack the Boxes, what boxes are going to be similar to OSCP-like machines. So you know you're not wasting your time on any arbitrary machine. You're looking at ones that'll set you up for success on the exam. And then, find additional guides, find a mentor. Through my journey, I had mentors that helped me learn this that were senior in the field, and it really gave me the confidence to push forward and succeed. So wish you guys the best of luck on this journey. Reach out to me or anyone at Phoenix TS if you have any questions, and hopefully it was a fun experience for you guys.
Yeah, this is amazing, Mike. Thank you so much. Go back to the go forward there to the last slide. Yeah. So Ned, how do they get this? Like, who do they call to get this $500 off?
Yeah, they're going to call into one of our training solution specialists. Just call in the phone number, and you have to when you have that conversation about the upcoming class on July 14th, mention that code that's right there, LiveHack25, and then this person will apply that $500 discount.
Okay, and our phone number, I guess, is on our website, so it's not on here. But just go to phoenixts.com and you'll be able to call us up. Okay. And then, thank you, everybody. Sorry for being a minute late, but it's worth it. Mike, incredible. Thank you so much for this. And be sure to register for the class on July 14th to get the $500 off. And yes, the DISA people on the call, we are working to add this offering, absolutely, to the DISA contract. As you may imagine, it takes some time to get these classes added. All right, thanks everybody. Thank you all, and hopefully see you in class.
Thank you. Take care.